Good morning, and welcome to the 2024 Louisiana Petrochemical Outlook Webcast, presented by 1012 Industry Report and the Baton Rouge Business Report. I'm Penny Font, Chief Content Officer for 1012 Industry Report and Business Report. Over the next 45 minutes, an expert panel will be exploring the key issues and trends facing a Louisiana petrochemical industry that's in the midst of fundamental transformation. This webcast would not be possible without the generous support of our sponsors, the Alliance Safety Council and Baton Pipe and Steel. Before we begin our panel discussion, I'd like to first introduce Joelle McGehee, the VP of Client Development at Alliance Safety Council.
We're thrilled to be a sponsor of today's webinar. At Alliance, we're committed to streamlining onboarding processes through our training and technology solutions, saving valuable time and resources. Our newest offering, Safe Basic, meets PSM requirements and allows workers to access interactive, awareness-level training anytime, anywhere. The course utilizes remote identity verification and participation monitoring technology to help ensure the integrity of training. If you're interested in learning more about Safe Basic, please get in touch. More information is also available at safebasictraining.org. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Danielle Burkeen, the owner of Baton Pipe and Steel.
Good morning. I'm excited to be here on your 1012 Industry Report podcast. We are a 100% woman-owned business. We've been around for 43 years. We are primarily carbon steel, stainless steel, and alloy, structural plate, pipe valves, and fittings. I've been here at our family-owned business for 39 years. We mostly supply to the petrochemical, pulp and paper, marine, and many other industries. We are locally owned here in Port Allen, Louisiana, and very close to the corridor of chemicals and petro here in this area. This is, of course, my first time doing a podcast, so I was not exactly prepared, but I'm trying to do the best I can. And thank you all, and have a great day.
Thank you very much, Joelle and Danielle, as well as your respective organizations for the incredible support. Now let's begin our 2024 Louisiana Petrochemical Outlook. Joining us for today's panel discussion are Martha Moore, Chief Economist and Managing Director of the American Chemistry Council in Washington, D.C., Dave Lukey, ExxonMobil Baton Rouge Chemical Plant Manager, and Di Nguyen, Shell Geismar General Manager. Thank you to each of you for being with us today. Let's kick it off with taking a look at the big picture. Martha, let's begin with you. What are some of the key economic trends that are likely to impact the petrochemical industry in the coming year and beyond? And how might businesses prepare for them? I know you have a few slides you're going to share with us.
Okay, great. I went ahead and prepared a really brief slide deck just to kind of go over some of the key points of our outlook and really pull it into being Louisiana specific. So Louisiana is a hugely important chemical manufacturing part of the United States. $65 billion worth of chemical products were produced in the state last year. It is the second largest manufacturing industry in the state, and it's the second largest state for chemical production. Of course, Texas being the largest, Louisiana is right up there. Provides direct jobs, high paying jobs to many Louisianans, and it's a major exporter. I'm not going to go through all of these points. And there's been huge investment in Louisiana petrochemicals and other chemical manufacturing over the past decade, and that continues. Almost $3.6 billion of new equipment and structures were put into place last year in the industry. All right. I thought this would be of interest to this group. This is data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics showing employment trends in Baton Rouge area in particular for chemical and pharmaceutical manufacturing. So yeah, I was looking to see how much we've seen some softness certainly in the national level data and employment. The industry is in a little bit of a downturn, but apparently that's not the case in the Baton Rouge area. So y'all are tied for the highest level of employment, chemical manufacturing employment, 12,900, almost 13,000 jobs just in the Baton Rouge area. Many of those at my co-panelist facilities, I'm sure. So, just very briefly, talking about the chemical industry and chemical demand, a couple of things we look at are the key end use markets. So 85% of basic and specialty chemicals are consumed by the industrial sector. So what's happening in the industrial sector in these key end use markets is greatly important. And of course, we also look abroad. We're a large exporter of chemicals. And so what's happening in manufacturing abroad is also of interest. But looking at the key end use markets here in the United States, we had industrial production last year of 3.4%. It was pretty strong. This year, we're expecting flat growth nationally in industrial production. Next year, we're expecting a small decline. The way to read this heat map is they are ranked in order from highest to lowest performance for this year, our expectations for 2023. And you can see that only 4 of the 18 industries that we track are expected to grow in 2023. And of course, motor vehicles, oil and gas extraction, aircraft, and iron and steel. Iron and steel has popped up recently. There's a tremendous amount of building going on in the United States. And I'm going to talk about that in another minute here. So I mentioned, we want to look at those domestic key end use markets. We also want to look abroad. The business of chemistry exports close to 30% of what it produces. And again, we're exporting to those manufacturing sectors in other parts of the world. These are purchasing managers' indices. These are measures, they're sort of soft survey measures of whether or not manufacturing has expanded or contracted in a particular region. The time series data, the lines on the left panel, the light blue line is global manufacturing. That has been in decline, contracting for the most of the last year. In the United States, we are reading below 50. That below 50 indicates a contraction. United States manufacturing has contracted for 10 months in a row. Although the pace of contraction actually improved in the most recent data for September. And the green line is China. So China, we expected China to come back online when they ended their zero COVID restrictions last year, but they have really sort of just bounced around that neutral mark. And you can see on the panel of the right, these are the most recent readings for September in some of those key trading partners that we have. India is just going gangbusters. That's sort of the economic wunderkind, if you will. Russia has expanded. Of course, their production has expanded to support their war effort. And I mentioned China in the most recent month expanded a little bit, but many of our other trading partners do remain in contraction. Which is not good for chemical demand. So looking here at our industry and for the chemical industry for 2023, it's a pretty tough year. We started to see some weakness emerging in the second quarter of last year as demand for goods. We had that big surge in demand for goods as that demand shifted towards services. At the same time, we had all those supply chain problems. And so folks built up their inventories as a mitigation strategy for these supply chain disruptions. So you had demand falling off at the same time that you had everybody in the supply chain building up inventory. So we've had this really unprecedented inventory destocking cycle. And it really has continued through the third quarter. It's not as bad as it was earlier in the year, but there's still weak demand for most of those key end use markets and especially exports. We see signs of slightly firming demand in certain products and different areas going into the fourth quarter. We do expect improvement in the first quarter, perhaps even late fourth quarter. But for this year as a whole, we're looking for declines across most segments of chemistry, an exception being consumer products, which are things like soaps and detergents and cleaning products. We expect an increase there, but Basic chemicals, we're looking for a 2.7% decline in basic chemicals, which of course is inorganic chemicals, in addition to those petrochemicals and synthetic materials that are produced in Louisiana and other parts of the country. We do expect a modest recovery emerging next year. And again, we had industrial production edging lower in our forecast for next year, but chemicals, because of where they are in the supply chain, we are expecting an improvement in chemistry before we see broad improvement in other parts of the industrial sector. Looking ahead, we've got capacity expansions in all kinds of manufacturing. Some of that is motivated by, wanting to have tighter control over the supply chains, and a lot of it is motivated by some of these recent pieces of legislation. There is optimism for chemistry in two big areas. One is our energy advantage. So the panel on the left is showing the ratio of the price of oil to the price of natural gas, and that's a proxy for competitiveness of U.S.-based petrochemical manufacturing. As you all know, our petrochemical base is primarily driven by natural gas liquids feedstocks versus the rest of the world, which primarily use naphtha refinery product. The panel on the right also gives me some optimism. This is manufacturing construction spending. This is historic data from the Census Bureau. For a long time, we're the blue section, we're the little blue wedge there. We accounted for a tremendous amount of over half of construction manufacturing, but recently that's been overtaken by computer, electronic, and electrical. And this is a lot of this is motivated by the CHIPS Act, the semiconductor manufacturing, in addition to the build out for EVs and batteries. So that makes me very optimistic going forward. Just really quickly, this is some survey data that we started doing at the American Chemistry Council. This is our Economic Sentiment Index. We look at various components of the business environment for our members. And I just wanted to highlight the very bottom about the regulatory burden. 38% of our members see the regulatory burden increasing. Nobody saw it decreasing. And looking ahead 6 months, which is not on this chart, they expect that regulatory burden to continue to increase. And that makes things very challenging. And I think I will stop sharing so that we can continue with the panel.
Thank you very much, Martha. That's some great information, a nice overview to start the conversation. Dave, I want to start with you now. In your opinion, what are the most significant challenges and opportunities facing the petrochemical industry in the Gulf Coast region?
Yeah, thank you. I would say it's a lot about exploring sort of these sustainable ways to reduce our emissions in the near term and in the future. So I think, early on, you're going to see, and you're hearing a lot about hydrogen fuels, alternative power sources, and then investing in things like carbon capture. So I think, for our industry, that's going to be key for the future. And then also, if you think about, the products we make help consumers reduce their emissions as well. So, making a more sustainable society and that kind of thing. And so the main challenge, again, is finding those sort of innovations that will allow us to meet society's needs, make modern life possible, while continuing to reduce our emissions and our greenhouse gas footprint. And I think that's going to require a lot of collaboration between industry, the government, universities, just to come up with the right policies and the right technology to make it all happen.
Absolutely. Di, your thoughts?
Hey, similar to what Dave is saying, the energy transition is a opportunity there from sustainable, either in the energy space or in the products that we make. Everyone is pretty much industry is pursuing low carbon products. A challenge I think to see is just the tremendous growth that is showing, and are we capable of being able to really execute those growth when you think about the workforce? While Louisiana has been blessed with certainly the workforce and a competent workforce, one that can grow. But if you just see the announcements that has sort of been out from the industry, we're talking 10 to 15 billion type of announcements. And the question would be, will we be able to really fund all those ambitions in Louisiana.
Yeah, the growth is incredible, and I want to pick up on that a little bit deeper. How would you compare the manufacturing investment we're seeing now compared to the past decade? What kind of capital spending do you anticipate along the Gulf, by refineries as well as chemical facilities? Dave, do you want to start?
Yeah, it's something we look at the Baton Rouge Area Chamber, and I think it is up tremendously in terms of what people have announced and possibly intending to build. I mean, Di mentioned, 15 billion. I think we're actually tracking around $30 billion worth of projects. And exactly what Di said, the discussions we're having is that if assuming everybody goes forward, there's no way all that can get built. There's just not enough skilled workforce in the trades to do that kind of work. And that's just in the 9-parish sort of greater Baton Rouge region. Lake Charles and Texas, they're doing the same sorts of things. And so it's going to put a real demand on our skilled workforce that, we need to encourage more people to get into the trades.
Martha, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of investment that's happening nationally. I don't track the Louisiana piece in particular, but as was mentioned, I mean, we're still seeing projects that are being built out to take advantage of our energy advantage, shale gas, and we're still talking about that. It's been more than 15 years now. We've seen it's sort of tailed off, but there's that, and then we're seeing more building to take advantage of some of these new technologies, as Dee and Dave were mentioning. The clean energy transition, all of those things are going to require chemical products, and that's going to be made here. A lot of it's going to be made in Louisiana.
Thank you. Di, what advantages and assets do you think Louisiana has that makes it a strong competitor right now? And what about challenges?
I think the fact that we have such a strong industrial base already existing positions Louisiana greatly for the energy transition. We can talk about the infrastructure that we provide, the pipelines that already exist, really the different competitors and contractor companies, the whole industry as a whole is a huge advantage. Put on that, we talk about the workforce around not having enough, but we're also set up with a pipeline to grow and manage that in a short and a long term. But the folks that we have, our workforce is very competent, very familiar with the industry that we have, which is a huge, tremendous advantage when you think about the HSE type performance that we expect as people are executing the construction, that we don't lose that part of our industry. So those are key advantages that hopefully allow Louisiana to lead in the energy transition.
Di, I know you'll want to weigh in on this as well, but Dave, let's start with you. Sustainability and decarbonization, as we've been talking about, remain critical areas of focus for most U.S. chemical companies in 2024. How would you rate industry in Louisiana in terms of defining and executing goals and plans around abatement of emissions and monetization of waste? What are some key examples of what we're seeing right now or what we're moving toward? I know it's still kind of early.
Yeah, a couple of things there. I would say, first, it's always good to remember that the petrochemical industry makes end products that helps consumers meet their sustainability goals. So think about lightweighting vehicles through the use of plastics, high performance films and food packaging that reduces food waste and also makes the packaging lighter, so thereby reducing the waste on that end as well. So a lot of what we do helps make more sustainable products for folks. In addition to that, I think where Louisiana is kind of leading the effort is in carbon capture and storage. ExxonMobil's announced a couple projects helping others in the industry reduce their emissions, with CF Industries and Nucor Steel being a couple examples. So I think there's a lot going on. And then as Di had mentioned previously, we have a lot of infrastructure that's really set up for helping people meet their sustainability goals. We've got great pore space, which works really well for carbon capture and sequestration that, gives us a leg up on other parts of the country.
Absolutely. Di?
Yeah, maybe to highlight one particular item very specific to Louisiana, you have to give credit to certainly the governor in taking the initiative and putting together a whole climate action plan. And so having certainly government participate and helping and putting a strategic plan in place will help galvanize the whole state. So that allows us to leverage not only industry, the different private sectors and universities in essentially working towards decarbonization. So, which is some of the things I think Martha has shown earlier when you saw the cost significantly from government and from legislation. That's very helpful to have a friendly industry that helps us work together to better the state of Louisiana.
Absolutely. Some of the innovations that we've heard companies investing in include a circular ecosystem approach to reduce waste and emissions throughout the value chain, bio-based feedstocks, advanced recycling, and other initiatives. These are all projects in Louisiana that are being talked about, proposed. Dave, let's start with you. We know Exxon has taken some of these approaches with local impact. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so what we're working on is some folks may have heard, we have put together a package we call the Innovation Suite. It's about a $250 million investment in both West Baton Rouge and East Baton Rouge. Part of that suite includes advanced recycling project, which so there's two right now. The predominant way of recycling plastics is mechanical recycling. Advanced recycling is different in that you take the plastics, you grind them up, and then essentially you convert them, you break them back down into the molecular level. And so now you've got just the molecules, you can process those through and then make plastic again. And that can be infinitely recycled. So we're looking at putting an advanced recycling project here in the Baton Rouge area. The other nice part is that has some potential come along benefits where others may want to provide the feedstock for that advanced recycling and locate facilities here in the greater Baton Rouge area. What we've also seen, we have one of these advanced recycling units in Houston. And so there's a lot of partnership going on with the city of Houston to better collect and sort feedstock for the advanced recycling. So they've partnered with several other industries and several communities to do a better job capturing recyclables and feeding them back into the advanced recycling project. So that's one of the Innovation Suite projects that we're looking at locating here in Baton Rouge potentially.
Very exciting. Di, what other key innovations are you seeing more broadly?
Similar to what Dave mentioned, I think most companies are looking towards those possibilities. One that we've at least implemented in a smaller place is at our sister site at Norco, in which we've already been able to introduce some pyrolysis oil that's been recycled into our products, certainly making for low carbon products. But maybe some things that innovations that's probably happening inside the different assets and around the manufacturers are probably innovation that helps on our safety performance or our reliability or our cost. So lots of things driven by maybe AI, monitoring on safety, certain things around advanced modeling that certainly will make assets more reliable, and quite a bit of technology to remove some of the repetitive tasks, and it allows our folks to certainly work on higher value products or higher value tasks from there. So those things are happening inside the different manufacturing facilities and in the whole industry as a whole from there.
Martha, how widespread are these innovations on a larger scale, and what other kinds of things are you seeing in the market?
Yeah, there's a tremendous amount of activity in this space. I do track this very closely. I think, I'm not sure, hydrogen has been mentioned. That's something we're seeing a huge amount of development, and I think there are some of those projects in Louisiana as well, electrification of crackers, and greater use of renewable energy sources. Somebody mentioned carbon capture and sequestration, which of course Louisiana I think has very favorable geology for that. But then there's a utilization component, being able to capture the carbon and then create new chemistries from the CO2 waste stream, which is a very exciting space. There's direct air capture, where they're actually able to take air and suck the carbon dioxide out of it. Maybe that's not for the chemists in the group, maybe that's not the most appropriate characterization. But there's a lot of materials of chemistry that are going into that. It's a really interesting space. We actually surveyed our members on this, and they told us that 25% of their capital budgets are allocated to sustainable manufacturing. Certainly nationwide and certainly happening in Louisiana. And actually, I wanted to bring up earlier, there was a study by Deloitte. This was the conversation about the opportunities. 75% of the emissions reductions required to reach net zero by 2050 will be met by technologies that rely on the chemical industry. That's huge. You can't get to net zero without the products that this industry makes.
Very impressive statistic. Martha, you talked about the regulatory impact earlier in the survey that you did of your membership. Are there specific policy recommendations or regulatory changes that the industry believes would facilitate sustainable growth and innovation? Dave, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think Di made a really good point, kind of backing up a little bit, that, Louisiana under our governor's leadership did come up with a climate action plan. So I think that's a great first step when you think about policies and that kind of thing. I think additional policies that encourage, GHG reductions and that sort of thing will be critical to progressing the energy transition. We see some of that today with some of the recent legislation, but I think it's going to take more in the future. Our company would kind of advocate for a flat carbon tax, which doesn't pick favorites and all that kind of thing, but would encourage the sort of long-term behaviors towards net zero.
Martha, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, certainly a consistent regulatory environment is critical. There's a number of different areas where we do see opportunities for regulatory reform. A permitting reform, I think, would be one that everybody would agree with, especially in Louisiana. Getting those projects in a streamlined way to get those from idea to being built, and having the federal regulations make sense at the state level, so they're not going over each other. Things like TSCA, getting the TSCA reform so that we could get innovative new chemistries approved and into the marketplace to do the jobs that they need to do. There's a lot of opportunities.
Okay. Let's shift now to some other topics. Dave, you mentioned AI. What are some of the ways Louisiana manufacturers are using it in the materials development process, whether it be material discovery and design, manufacturing and processing, quality control and testing, supply chain management, or life cycle sustainability analysis, or anything else that you want to share?
Yeah, so we're carefully studying AI. In looking at how people do work, and then how could we use technology such as AI. In our industry, data integrity and protection is critical. So we tend to be very thoughtful in how we approach these things. I will say some other examples of technology that are in play today. Di mentioned a few, but we also see things like virtual reality. We make great use of that to train our field operators and others, so that they can kind of go through all the steps and motions without having to actually deal with some of the chemicals and things that we have. We've also a lot of work just providing data in the field so that folks can have it while they're doing the job, and access to it. Back in the old days, the way you do that is you go to the field and back to your office, back to the field and back to your office. Now they can just go to the field and have access to everything. That's kind of a couple examples of technology. And again, like I said, we're doing a lot to look at how we can use the new technologies and being very thoughtful while maintaining data integrity and protection. And as Di mentioned, also trying to take away the mundane work that people do and automate that so that they can spend their time on more critical thinking.
Di, anything more you want to add to that?
Now, maybe some of the benefits of all of that has contributed to improvements in process safety. Anytime you can get better data and making the right decisions around integrity certainly impacts that. And anything in helping understand our reliability performance, that all contributes to essentially better safe operation. And I can imagine, as Dave mentioned, if you don't have to always go out there and check on things as much and have that kind of information to you, it gets a lot more efficient in our operations as a whole from there.
Martha, anything you'd want to add from the national scene?
Not really. I mean, I think they've covered all of that. It's an exciting, opportunity, right? You can do a lot more with less, and you can have better information on the ground.
Maybe one last item, Penny. If you think about this, the work will change for what is probably what we've seen, and I think that's an attraction. Certainly, when we think about getting workforce people coming in, maybe all these more enabled in our life with all the kind of tools and digitalization. People can see that, hey, you can come into the chemicals industry, refining industries, and still work in that kind of environment and not feel like you're going backwards in a sense. So I think that hopefully improves people to attract people to come into our industry from there.
Very good point. Thank you. What are some key lessons that this industry has learned or is learning from recent global events, the pandemic and natural disasters, of course, war that we're seeing in terms of business continuity and resilience? Di?
Yeah, I think we certainly learned quite a bit with the whole pandemic, and certainly the supply chain is probably one of the biggest areas. Just a few items to think about. When we started looking at what are the products or feedstocks that we're looking that's coming internationally, and then seeing essentially what the risks are in what we experienced during that COVID environment. So those kind of decisions are being taken around, do you relocate, do you look for alternatives that are more robust in our supply chain from there. Certainly also involve stocking up on inventories, et cetera, from different places. The ability, we also then demonstrate that we can work remotely. So that brings up quite a bit of innovation, and more importantly, capability that we probably didn't want to invest very big early on because you thought it was a small piece. But when the whole world was impacted, obviously all those investments and innovations can come to play. And using information technology to help our supply chain being more efficient, those were some of the key things we've dealt with from there.
Okay. Martha, a question for you. In light of geopolitical developments, how do you foresee global trade dynamics evolving for petrochemical products, and what strategies should industry leaders adopt to navigate those changes?
Yeah, so trade obviously is hugely important. I think I mentioned earlier that, Louisiana exports over $13 billion of chemical products to customers around the world, which is about 20% of output. It's a little bit higher at the national level. So exports and trade policy is hugely important. We need to maintain the press on opening up markets that are currently not open for business. We need to continue to do that. We need to work on tariffs, right? Tariffs both ways are problematic for this industry. This is a very global industry, and tariffs are a tax on production. We need to work to harmonize regulatory systems across countries so that we don't have these non-tariff barriers, not being able to export into a particular market because regulations are asynchronous or not lined up well. So I think all of those things need to happen, certainly at the policy level. In terms of trade, the forecast, this year we've seen very soft volumes in global trade. There might actually be a slight contraction. That's just, the trend of the economy. Everybody is done buying dishwashers and laptops and sofas. And so we have seen this sort of lull that will pick up again as we move into the recovery into next year.
Thank you. We've touched on employment a little bit here and there. What employment trends are all of you seeing or forecasting for the petrochemical sector? And what challenges, let's dive a little deeper into what challenges you're facing in terms of transitioning your labor forces into these new sustainability models we've been discussing. Dave, let's start with you.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I think, when we look at the kind of expansion we expect to see in this area, the kind of growth, I do think it's going to put, a stress on our craft industry. As Di mentioned, they're all extremely capable and can work well in this industry and have the skills necessary for where we're going and the sustainability projects that we're looking at. I just think we're going to need more of them. And so one of the challenges is to start earlier with the student population and identify those who are interested in pursuing a career in things like pipe fitting and welding and all that. So I really think we need to get into the middle schools and start talking about that, because these are great jobs. I mean, these are really great jobs that are available for folks, make a tremendous living, a high salary, and they'll be key. I mean, they're going to be so important for us as we participate in this energy transition. And it's just making people, I don't think a lot of young kids are even aware that these kind of jobs, what they pay and what they can do and the kinds of things they can contribute to our industry. So I think that's what I see as a challenge.
Are there any initiatives that you know of that are aimed at middle school students at this point?
Yeah, there is some going on. A lot of it's right now kind of focused on high school. I know here in East Baton Rouge, Superintendent Narcisse has really encouraged the internship program, and so we took on about like almost 40 summer interns and exposed them to careers in craft. Some of them then went in and signed up at the community college to go ahead and get that certificate. So a lot of different efforts going on. We sponsor with a number of our industry partners a North Baton Rouge Industrial Training Initiative. So that doesn't hit at the middle schoolers, but it does pick, it's free for folks to go and they can earn a craft, again, a certificate, become a welder, pipe fitter, whatever. And then nearly all of them get employed in the industry, or they go on to get additional education after they graduate.
Di, your thoughts on transitioning the labor force?
Yeah, just following up with where Dave left it. Well, we obviously need a lot more, and which means our general population that we seem to attract in the industry, we need to certainly ramp that up. But the other piece is around getting more diverse workforce. So to kind of get that, for instance, getting more attractive to get females attracted to our industry, which is a really hard thing to do. So how do you do that, and how do you make the job certainly more capable for those things? And when we think about remote work, et cetera, those factors help attract a bit more diverse workforce in. And then the other ones is about the different technologies that are happening. How do we prepare our workforce for that? And like Dave mentioned, getting it earlier into the schools, in the middle schools, before high school even, because the type of work that we do is, people could come and think that you go to a gaming and playing. There are jobs in our industry that is just like that. If you're running those facilities on a board, that is almost like watching gaming on there and taking decisions. So how do we get those out there to attract people into this industry from there?
That's a great point. Martha, anything you want to add to that?
Really, they summed it up pretty well. But yeah, I mean, the workforce issue has been, it was prevalent before the pandemic, and it's this much more worse now. We've seen the average age of workers in the chemical industry continue to increase. I mean, that's true for all of manufacturing. It's a nationwide problem, certainly not specific to the chemical industry or specific to Louisiana. But I think getting out there and telling the story of what our industry does and the really exciting and necessary materials that this industry makes here in the United States, to attract some of these young folks that really want to make a difference and want to be part of that story. Need to get out there and tell them that.
Very good point. Just building a little bit off of this part of the conversation, what advice would you offer to young professionals seeking to build a career in the petrochemical industry, especially in the context of these evolving technologies and sustainability challenges we've discussed? Di?
That's a good question. We try to reach folks there, and I think the more education we have around what the industry is and what it could evolve to, certainly will help. There are folks that believe, maybe college is not necessarily what they want to do, and these industry jobs that we offer are great paying jobs that certainly are fit very well for folks who may not want to go and do those 4 to 8 years kind of careers from there. And hopefully we will entice and reach out for these particular jobs. And some of it's probably a bit unknown from there. So we need to do a much better job of reaching out to that kind of population.
Agreed. Any key takeaways any of you would like to share with our viewers as we close out? Dave?
Yeah, I think a couple key takeaways. One, the chemical industry makes products that makes modern life possible. And so there's a bunch of the world, that does not have access to what we enjoy every day. And so that, we want to continue to expand that and continue to supply the products that, like I said, make modern life possible. Closer to home, I talked about our innovation suite, our $250 million potential investment. One of those being advanced recycling. A couple other projects in there that we're looking at and hoping to bring to Baton Rouge include ultra pure isopropyl alcohol facility, which would be used in semiconductor chip manufacturing. And then a project that brings it's a blending facility to make some thermoset resins, which are kind of a new to the world product that can go into things like wind turbine blades, sustainable construction, corrosion protection on piping and that kind of thing. So that we're hoping to bring those here to the Baton Rouge area and see some new products being made.
Awesome. Martha?
I just think the takeaway from all of this conversation is this is not your grandfather's chemical industry, right? This is there's some really exciting new things that are happening on the sustainability front and the clean energy transition and the manufacturing that's coming back to this country. It's an exciting time to be in the industry, and I hope young people are paying attention.
I like that. And Di?
I think the energy transition is providing such a great opportunity, and certainly specifically in Louisiana. It would be a shame if industry, government, and everyone not work together to essentially take this opportunity to where it is. And you can certainly see that there are demands certainly from the consumer. And in my business, some of them are consumer products. We can see that working from the customers all the way back, there's a demand for the products that we're making, and it's not just something that certainly is mandated by government, etc. It's real, and there is a big part of the market, and it'd be a shame if Louisiana doesn't take advantage of this and work together to achieve it.
So true. I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. On behalf of 1012 Industry Report and Baton Rouge Business Report, I really want to thank Martha Moore, Dave Lukey, and Di Nguyen for their time and expertise this morning. It's been very interesting conversation, and I appreciate your insights. As a reminder, a recording of this event will be emailed to all participants later today, as well as a link to download additional materials from our panelists. Also, thanks to our sponsors, the Alliance Safety Council, and Burkine Pipe and Steel. And of course, thank you to those in the audience for giving us a bit of your time this morning. We hope you gained some valuable insights. I'm Penny Font, and please have a great rest of your day.